Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to take a look at the brush hog that I picked up off of Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace. And I figured I'd give you something nicer to look at than my face. So the reason why I picked up this brush hog, those of you who follow my channel know that I already have a very early, very well built bush hog, brush hog. It's a 5-footer, and I pull that thing behind my Ford 1920 tractor. That's a model, not a year. Anyways, that bush hog has such solid steel in it that even with loaded tires, solid rubber tires on the front of that tractor, and weights on the front of that tractor, suitcase weights, that front end can still pop up and get pretty light if you let off the clutch a little too fast. That's how heavy that darn thing is. And a little while back I did a video where I replaced a leaking seal on that and welded up a badly damaged stump jumper on there. So I've got that to the point where that's working pretty well. I've still got a problem with the balancing on the PTO shaft because of the slip clutch. I need to get some of these, I forget what they call it, but these special spring washers in there, and if I take that slip clutch apart, put it back together with new spring washers and align it, it'll be good to go. But, I'm moving along here with the Ford 5000. So my thinking was I'd keep an eye out and see if I come across any deals on any 6-foot brush hogs, because the other one is a 5-footer. 5-footer is perfect size for that 1920, but it'll be a little bit small behind this 5000. So a 6-footer would be, I figure would be ideal. Well, lo and behold, I saw a ad on Facebook Marketplace, and this woman had not one, but 2 6-footers for sale. Now, she listed them as bush hogs, and the reason why that caught my eye is because I really like the Bush Hog brand. Bush Hog is still in business. You can still get parts from them. But the early Bush Hog machines are built like Sherman tanks. I mean, they just really, really well made. So that being said, I was really hoping that what she had there rusting away in her field was a actual 6-foot Bush Hog machine. So I contacted her, and she had a price of $750 each on these, and reached out to her, and unfortunately I didn't see her ad when it first posted, and by the time I got a hold of her and she got back to me, she had informed me that one of them was already gone, but the other one was still there. Well, I kind of figured since they were both 6-footers, chances are whoever went out and looked at them took the better of the two. So I figured right off the bat, if they even gave her the full $750, whatever's left, being the poorer of the two, I should be able to get a better deal on. So I decided to take a chance and go out there and take a look at it. Well, after a little bit of bartering, going back and forth, I ended up buying this thing for $400. $400 for a 6-foot bush hog in good condition, working, is a hell of a deal. However, this is not going to be one of those stories. First problem was she had already sold off the tractors, and there was no equipment on the property left that could lift this thing. I wasn't too worried about lifting it to bring it home, because I knew I could borrow my neighbor's tilt bed trailer and just winch this thing up onto it, which is exactly what we did today. My son and I went out there and we winched it up onto the tilt bed trailer and got it home no problem. But what was concerning me was, because I couldn't lift it up, and because of the way it was sitting in this field, I had no way to look underneath this. I did actually get my phone under there and took a couple of photos, and was able to determine that yes, there was a stump jumper on it. Because my concern was that I would get it home, lift it up, and find out that somebody had robbed parts off of it, and it was just, missing a stump jumper and blades and everything. It was just basically a big piece of scrap metal. So let's take a look at this Creampuff. Oh, but before I could do anything, I ended up having to replace another line off of the backhoe. 4 feet, maybe 4.5 feet of line, okay? Guess how much in July of 2022. Guess how much that sucker cost me? I'll tell you at the end of the video. So I get out there and I clear enough grass away to see this sticker on the side here and see that this is a Hawkline. This is a Hawkline bush hog. And it has some damage. It has definitely rolled a rock or two in its lifetime up underneath here. This looks like, yeah, definitely the sins of the farmer type of welding job on this thing. On this side, the sticker is much more damaged. We got, this is an interesting little boo-boo right here. Oh, I wonder how the hell that happened. We got the remnants of the Hawkline sticker on the top here. We've got a couple of pins that are pretty bent for the hitch. And then, this is just spaghetti. But I'm actually not too worried about that. This is not as bad as it looks right here. That's actually just the way it's hooked up right now. The trailing arm for the trailing wheel is not completely trashed. The wheel itself is still serviceable. So the first thing I did was I took an adjustable wrench with me when I went out to look at this thing first time. And I took the fill plug off on the gearbox and stuck my finger in there and could not, no matter how far I stuck my finger in, I could not feel any oil. So I knew the oil level was low. I then found something to stick down there to act as a dipstick, pulled it out, and realized there is still oil in there. So it wasn't running dry, so I felt that the gearbox was probably still okay. So that was the first thing I had to take a chance on. The good news is, when I lifted it up off the trailer today, got my first look at the underside of this thing, not only is the stump jumper in place, but it's actually in excellent condition. There are no cracks in it, and it is not damaged. There are two blades on there that actually look like they are still serviceable. However, there is a large oil stain, indicating that this sucker is leaking oil profusely, which would explain the low level in the gearbox. So we've got a bad seal. My theory is that the gentleman who was running this machine probably was just topping off the gearbox every time he would use it, as opposed to going through the trouble of taking that stump jumper off to replace that seal, which is what I did on the other bush hog that I own. So technically this is a brush cutter, and bush hog is a trade name, and then over the years they started calling them brush hogs. But it's kind of like Band-Aid. Band-Aid is a trade name. But if you use a adhesive strip to cover your boo-boo, chances are, no matter what brand you buy, you're going to call it a Band-Aid.
We are Band-Aids.
Just like jacuzzi is a trade name, but people love to call their hot tubs jacuzzis, even though it may be made by some other company. So the other thing I thought was interesting, there's no slip clutch on this. Apparently what they do is they use this bolt right here as a type of shear pin. So this is not a spline shaft, it's just got this bolt in there. He's got a double nut situation here so it wouldn't loosen up on him while he's running it, but if he hits something really bad, this nut is designed to snap, so you don't want to put a grade 8 bolt in there. Underneath all of the garbage that was on top of here, I found the remnants of a couple of bolts, indicating to me that he's snapped a few in his day. The property I picked this up from, there was a sign out in front that he was for hire for brush hogging. So does anybody know about Hawkline? I was able to look it up. I guess originally they were made by somebody here in the US, and then I think they were bought out by another company. I don't know much about them. From what I gather online, they are on par with the cheaper Tractor Supply type things, like maybe Land Pride comes to mind as one of the brands that this might be on par with, or maybe a little bit above that, but not going to be on the not going to be on par with the Woods or bush hog brands. That being said, there's also the comparison of modern to, earlier. For instance, my bush hog that I've got, I guarantee you they're not making the new model of that, even though they still sell that model supposedly. I think it's BH205. I bet you the steel isn't as thick. There's my trusty little Ford 1920. These tires look horrendous, but that's because the reason why haven't been replaced is because they're solid rubber filled tires, and that rubber is heavy. I know because I had to do a wheel bearing on one of these tires once, and it was really a surprise how heavy that tire was when I unbolted it. And then look at the suitcase weights, 5 of them. And with all of that weight on the front end, you still do not want to let the clutch out on a slight hill too fast with this cutter in the up position, because that front end will come off the ground. So this thing is a beast. I mean, you look at the gearbox on this thing. This looks like even the gearbox looks stouter, bigger. This has this slip clutch, which hasn't slipped in a long time. Should be taken apart and serviced. I never get around to doing it. Uses these unusual, these are stacks of special cup spring washers. And you stack them all up and they create a spring effect. They're so old that they now are just like a solid piece of metal. So I haven't gotten around to doing anything with this slip clutch, but I definitely like this design. So if I get that other one, fixed up and working, I might invest in one of those slip clutches for that machine. But you get a load of the thickness of the steel on the skirt on this thing. Well, actually the skirt is thinner, but this part of the frame that the skirt bolts to, that's the other thing too, these skirts unbolt. Still managed to bend that. Even this frame on the back here for the trailing wheel, better design. A-frame instead of just one arm coming out the back. That whole frame assembly there for the gearbox, see, it's beefier. And there's the label, in case anybody doubted. It is a genuine bush hog. And it's a model 305, so currently they call this a BH305, but it's the same machine. Very similar looking still, but I don't know if, I got a feeling the steel isn't as thick as it is on this one. This is probably, I don't know, 1960s? But that was an ugly mess when I got that too, and I had to go over an hour's drive to pick it up. And the rear trailing wheel was trash, but I got a new one that's from Tisco, pretty straightforward. And then, like I said, more recently I put a new seal in. It's actually a double seal. It's 2 seals stacked one on top of the other, facing each other in opposite directions. Interesting design. Alright, so hope you guys enjoyed this video. So please hit the like button, and if you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing. Take care.